In our last visit together, Gordy provided some thoughts on the importance of addressing the hot topic of job-based harassment. In this video, titled Ethical Decision Making, Gordy will talk about the importance of giving your personnel a decision-making process. In too many organizations, we teach our people how to do things, but we do not teach them how to think. Gordy will provide a decision-making process that is applicable for all high-risk professions. This checklist will better assure that things go right and nasty consequences are avoided.
And hello again, and for the final time, Gordon Graham here with our last video of 9, and this one focuses on ethical decision making. And I've already teased you on this several times. In too many organizations, we teach our people how to do things, but we don't teach them how to think. So, one of the things I serve as is a consultant, and I get invited in primarily to police and fire departments to give them some advice. And I always try to get to the staff meetings. You can learn so much at a departmental staff meeting. That's where all the executives sit around the table. Who sits where, who's got the tallest chair, who commands respect, who's taking notes. You can learn a lot at these staff meetings. And my guess is, I've never been to one, but my guess is water districts have staff meetings also where all the department heads get together. What's the last item on the staff meeting agenda? Roundtable. Roundtable discussion. All right, folks, we got through the agenda very nicely. It is now time for our roundtable discussion. Mary, how's everything going in your unit? A pretty good, boss. Tom, how's everything going in your unit? A pretty good, boss. Steve, how's everything going in your unit? Pretty good, boss. Fred, what the heck went wrong in your unit? Well, Chief. Well, AGM. Well, Chief. The involved employee made a bad decision. The involved employee made a bad decision. And I look around the table, and I see all the other bosses nodding their head affirmatively. Yeah, bad decision, bad decision, bad decision. Excuse me, boss? Gordon, you have a thought? Occasionally they pop up. Are we actually going to say that the cause of this tragedy is the employee made a bad decision? Well, Gordon, I think he made a bad decision. His own boss thinks he made a bad decision. The investigators think he made a bad decision. You think it could be something different? I think the bad decision is the proximate cause. But the real problem lying in wait might be something different. What could that be? Have you ever trained your personnel on how to make good decisions? Well, of course we have. Show me the class. Show me the curriculum when you hire people, what their training agenda is. Show me the class on decision making. We don't give people the decision-making process. Well, why should we? Go ahead. There's that risk frequency matrix in front of you right there. Right again. Of course, most of what we do, we're doing right, because most of what we do is in the right 2 boxes. We've done it before. It's high frequency. We've got the memory markers, the behavioral scripts. What happens when we put our people in a low-frequency task that's high risk in nature, where we've got time to think? Have we given our people a systematic approach on how to think things through? Have we given our people a checklist on how to think things through? No, we haven't. No, we haven't. We need to be giving people a decision-making process. And I'm not bad-mouthing anybody, but the CHP in 1973 did not give me a decision-making process. They taught me how to do things. I spent 3 years in graduate school where I learned theories and principles of risk management, but nobody gave me a decision-making process. Do you know where I got my decision-making process? Was in law school. In law school, they teach you a technique called IRAC. I-R-A-C. What's the issue? What's the rule? Apply the rule. Reach a logical conclusion based on the facts. And for 4 years of law school, that's the way I was taught to think. Mr. Graham, what's the legal issue here? Mr. Graham, would you please cite the correct rule of law? Mr. Graham, would you please apply the rule of law to the facts at hand? Mr. Graham, would you please reach a logical conclusion based on the facts? And for 4 years, IRAC, 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 IRAC. That was the way I was taught to think. And in 1982, I opened up the law offices of Gordon Graham, and every time I got a client, while they were talking, I was thinking, what's the issue? What's the rule? Apply the rule, reach a conclusion. IRAC, IRAC, IRAC. It worked for me as a new lawyer. Oh, please don't forget, in 1982, I was also a brand new sergeant. Everything I did since 1973 as a cop, I had done before. I had the memory markers, the behavioral scripts, the mental models. Frequency was on my side. Now, I'm a new sergeant, and I'm getting exposed to things that I never thought of before. Hey, wait a minute. I wonder if this IRAC will work for me as a new sergeant. And it did, but it wasn't perfect. So I kept on playing with it, playing with it, playing with it, and way back in 1985, I came up with the decision-making process based on IRAC. Based on IRAC. So what I want to give you in this last video of the 9 in the series is a decision-making process. I call it a 10-step process. It's actually 8 steps with 2 follow-up steps, but we'll call it a 10-step process. And the first step of the process is identifying what needs to be decided. If you can successfully navigate step 1, steps 2 through 10 fall into place very nice. But the most difficult part of the decision-making process is step 1. What's going on here? What am I being asked to think about, to decide? And if it's preservation of life, and some of the things you do involve preservation of life, we skip all the way to step 8 and we preserve life. But short of preservation of life, and many things are, most things are, what's going on here? What am I being asked to do? What is this incident all about? Listen to what's being communicated to you. Ask clarifying questions as necessary. And here's a big one. Don't let RPD&M get in the way. Well, Gordon, I thought RPD&M was my friend. RPD&M is your friend, but RPD&M can set you up for a very nasty phenomenon, and I've already mentioned it, cognitive lock. Cognitive lock. Now, if you want to read a great piece on cognitive lock, oddly enough, Wikipedia, of all places, there is a great piece on cognitive lock on Wikipedia. I think they did a good job. For our limited purposes here today, what's cognitive lock? That's where the brain makes up its mind based on partial information. And here's the problem with the brain. Once it starts making up its mind, it hates to change its mind. It hates to change its mind. Cognitive lock is the kiss of death. When I talk to cops, I encourage every chief of police to get their detectives to read a great book called Pickin' Cotton. Pickin' Cotton. It's not on my recommended reading list because my recommended reading list is more general than specific to any type of organization. But if you want to read something fascinating, Pickin' Cotton. Violent rape in North Carolina back in the late 80s. Street cops show up. They're talking to the victim. Sex detectives show up. The victim is pretty lucid, talking well. So they start asking her questions. Shortly into their investigation, one sex detective turns to the other sex detective and says, I think I know who did this. What? Yeah, same MO. I've dealt with this guy before. He doesn't live that far from here. Well, there's no harm in talking to him. No harm in talking to him. So they go out to talk to this guy. He sees the cops coming, and he runs. Does that further prove his guilt? When they catch him, he lies about where he was during the commission of the rape. She identifies the guy. They get this guy convicted. 15 years later, he's in prison. DNA wasn't him. In retrospect, there was a ton of exculpatory evidence on scene that they ignored because they'd already made up their mind. Cognitive lock. They had already made up their mind. On my recommended reading list is a great book about doctors. How Doctors Think by Jerome Groopman. Chapter 1. I agree, doctors are killing a lot of people, but it's not because they're practicing bad medicine. Oh, this is what I want to read. It's not? Nope. They're addressing the wrong problem. So the last time you visited a doctor, you had a 9 o'clock appointment with your doctor. 9:45, doctor will see you now, and they take you into a room and they weigh you, and they take some notes. And then you sit there some more, and you left your magazine out in the waiting room. You have nothing to read, so you're looking at the bone chart on the wall. Wow, that's true. The knee bone is connected to the thigh bone, and all of a sudden, you hear the shuffling papers out in front, a knock on the door, and in comes the doctor. Well, Mary, well, John, what brings you in today? Dr. Groopman lays it out very clearly. The second you start talking, the doctor's hitting the stopwatch. You got 18 seconds to make your case. 18 seconds. Because that doctor's got to see 60 patients a day to break even financially. You've got 18 seconds. And here's the bad news. You start talking about your sore throat. Hey, guess what? The guy in the room next to you had the same symptoms. Therefore, there must be something going around. If that doctor would have taken the time to ask 2 more questions, he could have ruled out common cold and got it in rheumatoid arthritis. The first step on how to make a decision is what needs to be decided. If it's preservation of life, we instantly preserve life. But short of preservation of life, what's going on? What am I being asked to do? Ask clarifying questions as necessary, and don't let RPDM get in the way. That is step 1. That's the most important step. Step 2 is easy. Do I have time to think? If the answer is yes, you move on to step 3. If you don't have time to think, maybe you should have picked that up on your risk assessment earlier on, that top left portion of that top left box, and done daily training on those events. But if you have time to think, use it to do what? Step 3, do I have jurisdiction? Do I have jurisdiction? If the answer is yes, move on to the core of the decision-making process, 4, 5, 6, and 7. But if the answer is no, I don't have jurisdiction, this is not a water department issue. This is a public works issue. This is a fire department issue. Then if you don't have jurisdiction, get it to someone who does have jurisdiction and follow through to making sure it got done. This is not a class on customer service today, but one easy way to get people saying, wow, is a follow-up phone call. Hello, Mrs. Thompson? Yes. This is John Gomez from the Water District. Yes, I was at your property yesterday. I was not able to help you. I referred you to Public Works. Were they able to help you? It doesn't matter if the answer is yes or no. The mere fact that you called up is value. Step 1, what's going on? Step 2, do I have time to think? Step 3, do I have jurisdiction? And if 2 and 3 answer yes, the core of the decision-making process, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Step 4, get in the habit of looking up policy on low-frequency events. You don't have to look up policy on high-frequency events. You're doing them all the time. If you weren't doing them right, you would already know. Get in the habit of looking up policy on low-frequency events. And once again, follow the policy. The easiest way to lose a case is to have a policy in place that says this is the way you do it. You do it a different way, and somebody suffers harm or a loss, that is instant civil liability. Look up the policy and follow it. And if there's no policy specific to what you're trying to do, what's your mission statement say? What is the mission statement for your water department? And try to comport your behavior right now to be consistent with the mission statement. And for all you bosses out there, make sure you have a mission statement, what you're all about as an organization, and how to make sure your behavior is complementary to that mission statement. One last thought on this step. One last thought. When the young kids come up to you and say, hey, you've been around for a while, how do you handle this? How do you handle this? Rather than giving them the fish, why don't we teach them how to fish? Well, son, well, young lady, here's the policy manual. Let's look it up. How do you interpret this? Teaching people to look up policy and follow policy. That is step 4. Step 5, past practice. Past practice. The easiest way to anger an American is give them a hint that they are being treated differently than other people who are similarly situated. So past practice. How have we handled it before? Well, Gordon, it's low frequency. I've never handled it before. Ah, yes, but you have time to think. Ask. Ask. How do we generally handle this? I haven't handled it before. This is not a sign of being weak. This is a sign of being smart. I haven't handled this before. How do we handle it? If you normally provide a service for people, then you need to do it tonight. If you normally don't take action on this, then why are you doing it today? You gotta be consistent. The easiest way to anger an American is give them a hint that they're being treated differently than other people who are similarly situated. Now, if you want to deviate from the norm, you better have specific articulable facts to justify the deviation. We are treating you different because of this, this, and this. You better have a reason that you can explain downstream. Again, recapping the stop story. Step 1, what's going on? Step 2, do I have time? Step 3, do I have jurisdiction? If 2 and 3 answer yes, step 4, what's the policy say? Step 5, what's our past practice? Step 6, am I doing the right thing here? Not just doing things right, but am I doing the right thing here? Right now, just the placeholder, more on this later. Step 7, the consequence analysis. Smart people consider consequences before they make decisions. Stupid people only consider consequences when consequences arise. And now it's too late because you're in Lawyerville. Part of your decision-making process. Step 4, what's the policy? Step 5, past practice. Step 6, am I doing the right thing here? Step 7, what are the consequences? The long-term consequences, the short-term consequences, the intended consequences, and here's the tricky one, folks, the unintended consequences. Unintended consequences. Smart people consider consequences before they arise. Stupid people only consider consequences when they're in Lawyerville. You've got to do the consequence analysis. If I do this, how is it going to end up? If I don't do this, how is it going to end up? Step 7, you've had time to do your consequence analysis. Step 8, act, make the call, do something. Step 1, what's going on? If it's preservation of life, we skip to step 8. 2 and 3, do I have time? Do I have jurisdiction? If the answer is yes, 4, 5, 6, and 7, policy, past practice, ethics, consequences. Step 8, make the call. And it's not too late to go all the way back to step 1 to make sure we're still headed in the right direction. It's a lot easier to undo at this point than it is to redo a decision once made. Step 8, make the call, check to make sure nothing's changed. Step 9 is the lawyer in me. The importance of incident documentation, record keeping, why you did, what you did, when you did it. And step 10 is the risk manager in me. If you learn something new, share it with as many people as you can. Learn and share, learn and share. And again, going back to my pet peeve, institutional knowledge, we are not sharing. We are not sharing our mistakes. We're not sharing our good stuff. And as a result, we keep on making the same mistakes over and over again. You know, I'm pretty popular in the fire service, and I'm pretty popular in law enforcement. And I have an equal number of people coming into my law offices from the fire service and from law enforcement. Want some numbers? Round figures, 1 million cops in the country. Round figures, 1 million firefighters in the country. Who do I have more in my law office? What do you think? Cops or firefighters? What's your gut tell you? Cops. And it's not even close. Every time I see a firefighter in my law office, I know I'm going to see 50 cops before I see another firefighter. Well, firefighters don't get into much trouble? Yep. Why? Are they smarter than cops? Nope. They learn differently. They learn differently. What's going on right now in your police department where you live? Oh, you've got a cop handling a domestic violence call. They learned something on the domestic violence call. Wow, I didn't know that. So they clear the call and they go where? To the next call, which was an overturned vehicle going over the side of a road, and the tow truck's already there, and they're pulling the vehicle up the side of the hill, and the vehicle gets stuck in a rut, so the tow truck driver puts a little more pressure on the cable, and the cable snaps, whips around, and rips the mirror off the tow truck, and that cop is standing on the other side saying, wow, if I would have been standing over there, I could have got hurt. They learned something. And where do they go? They go to their next call and their next call. Cops learn individually. Firefighters learn collectively. That's what I want in water service operations. We need collective learning. Everybody who learns something, share with your peers. Learn and share, learn and share. So there you have it. There's my 10-step decision-making process. And I know there's many other decision-making processes out there. If you are fans of WIN, what's important now, use that process. If you're a military veteran and they gave you a decision-making process, use that one. If you're a fan of John Boyd and his OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, and act, use that one. But if nobody's ever given you a decision-making process, use mine. I like mine for two reasons. Number one, it's worked for me for 30-plus years. And number two, my decision-making process incorporates the hottest topic in America today into the process. Well, Gordon, what do you think the hottest topic is in America today? Duh. Ethics, 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 ethics. The hottest topic in America today is ethics. Well, Gordon, that's actually a misstatement. I agree with you that it's a hot topic today, but Gordon, ethics has always been important in the United States of America. In fact, the United States of America may well be the most ethical country that's ever existed. You know what? I love my country, but have we done some very shaky stuff over the last 250 years? And so America got concerned about ethics. And whenever we have concerns, we always ask the lawyers. So the lawyers came up with the fix for ethics. If you want ethics, when you hire people, make sure you give them all ethics training. And you know why? Because all lawyers understand is proximate cause. You walk up to a real risk manager and ask her the same question or him the same question. You want ethics in your organization? It's more than ethics training. Having a piece of paper saying that somebody's been to an ethics class means nothing to me. Nothing. When you read that Rampart investigation, Rafael Perez, the lead punk in the Rampart scandal, had an ethics test at the start of his career and he passed it. If we gave him an ethics test every day, he would still be a criminal thug. Justin Volpe, New York PD, the guy who sodomized that Haitian immigrant with a plunger, remember that one 20 years ago? He had a class on ethics at the start of his career, and he passed the test. If we gave that guy an ethics class every day, he would still be a sexual predator. Having a piece of paper saying that somebody's been to an ethics program means nothing to me. If we want ethics, if we really want it, a risk manager approach. It's the 4 steps. First, hire people who've got integrity. Once again, the people component. Background investigations. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Hire good people. Second, after hiring good people, let's make sure they understand the ethics of our profession. Just because they have the noun integrity doesn't mean they understand the ethics of why we do what we do in water district operations. Please, early on, they need classes on ethics at the start of their career. But step 3 is something that I want the AGMs and the GMs to consider. Decentralize ethics training. After you hire people, that's the last class on ethics they ever get. Instead, every class we teach our personnel, regardless of what the topic is, let's build in a discussion on ethics specific to what's being taught. You're teaching a class on travel expense claims. There's ethics issues involved in travel expense claims. You're teaching a class on vehicle maintenance. There's ethics involved in vehicle maintenance. You're teaching a class on report writing. You're teaching a class on whatever. Whatever the class is, let's build in a discussion on ethics specific to the topic being taught. And finally, the fourth one here, you're the bosses. When people don't follow the rules, it needs to be addressed. And remember this, every time you ignore inappropriate behavior, you've ratified the inappropriate behavior and you've encouraged future inappropriate behavior. When people cross the bright line of ethics and integrity, that is a very big deal and it needs to be addressed. So, for everybody in here, you've got my 10-step decision-making process. When you get to step 6 of my decision-making process, am I doing the right thing here? Step 4, checking policy. Step 5, past practice. Step 6, am I doing the right thing here? Here's the 4 considerations. When I cover that, I said more on this later, and now we are later. If you ever get involved in a task and you're asking yourself, am I doing the right thing here? 4 considerations for you. Consideration number 1, always follow the law and always follow the policy. You know what I've learned? If you've got state law and department policy on your side, you are usually headed in the right direction ethically. Women and men who write laws and policies do so with a bent towards ethics. Follow the law, follow the policy, follow the law, follow the policy, but don't stop your analysis there. Lazy people stop with number 1. Nincompoops stop with number 1. Imbeciles stop with number 1. Well, the law said I could do it. The policy said I could do it, so I did it. Just because the law says you can do it, just because the policy says you can do it, does not mean it's the right thing to do. Always give it the smell test. How does it smell? How does it smell? And can I give you a hint? If it smells a little bit bad today, it's going to stink to high heavens tomorrow. Always give it the smell test. How does it smell? How does it smell? Now, you can only give it the smell test when you have discretion. When the law says shall, when the policy says shall, that's the way it's got to be done. Going back to my earlier comments, for all you bosses in here, make sure you don't overuse the word shall. But when you do use it seriously, and if you're the end user of that policy, when the law says shall, the policy says shall, that's the way you got to do it, notwithstanding consequences, notwithstanding the right thing to do here. Always follow the law, follow the policy when you have no discretion. Step 3, we're going to make mistakes. We are going to make mistakes. This is a very complex job you have chosen. You're going to make mistakes. You know what I've learned in life? Can you make very big mistakes and still keep your job so long as you tell the truth? Never compound the mistake with a cover-up. I talk to HR people around this great country. Gordon, most of the people we're terminating today are not getting terminated for the event that led to the investigation. They're getting terminated for lying during the investigation. Always be upfront and honest. And finally, step 4, for all of us, ethical actions speak louder than ethical words. What you do is good stuff, folks. Practice what you preach. Always be upfront and honest, even when no one's watching and your behavior will never be noticed. Without the public trust, we have absolutely nothing. So, that wraps it up for video 9 of video 9.
We thank Gordon Graham for his deliberative, comprehensive, and interlinking risk management video series. AAWD&M would also like to thank the California Association of Mutual Water Companies, Appalachian State University, and our charter members for their support in producing these videos. We welcome you to visit AAWD&M's website at www.aawdm.org for more details on the association's mission, initiatives, and services. The AAWD&M video module series is available to all public water systems, related entities, and supporting stakeholders. Utilization of any aspect of this video without the express written permission of AAWD&M is strictly prohibited. As with any presentation, the opinions associated with this subject matter are those of the speaker and not of AAWD&M, its members, or supporters. Thank you.